The airport fell silent when a white officer suddenly locked eyes with a black traveler, pointing and laughing loud enough for everyone to hear. He mocked his clothes, questioned his presence, and even threw in a cruel joke about how people like him could never belong up front. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some even chuckled nervously, while the man stood tall, refusing to flinch. What the officer didn't know, and what was about to leave the entire terminal in stunned silence, was that this so-called ordinary black passenger wasn't just another face in line. He was the pilot in command of the very plane waiting outside. He had spent years training for this moment, mastering every technical detail, memorizing every safety protocol, and enduring the relentless scrutiny of flight schools that often underestimated him at every turn. His love for aviation was as deep as his determination to break barriers. Today he was ready, not just to fly, but to prove, once again, that talent and perseverance know no color. The airport buzzed around him with the usual chaos of rolling suitcases, flight announcements, and impatient travelers. Yet amidst the everyday noise, a subtle tension began to creep in. As he approached the security checkpoint, a uniformed officer's gaze lingered a moment too long. The officer's expression carried a mix of suspicion and disdain, the kind reserved for someone who didn't fit the expected image. He felt the weight of the officer's eyes, the unspoken judgment pressing against him like a heavy fog. Around them, strangers noticed. Some tried to avoid eye contact. Others couldn't help but stare, sensing the quiet injustice unfolding. Despite the unease, he stayed composed, adjusting his suit and moving with the calm precision of a professional who had faced skepticism all his life. Every step closer to the gate amplified the officer's scrutiny, and with each passing second, the tension thickened. Fellow passengers whispered, a few casting glances that hinted at disbelief or unease. Yet he didn't flinch, fully aware that this confrontation was about more than just boarding a plane. It was a test of dignity, poise, and the strength to confront prejudice without losing control. By the time he reached the front of the line, the officer's mockery began, subtle at first, then louder, intended to humiliate in front of witnesses. But the man remained steady, unshaken. What the officer couldn't anticipate was that the man held a truth so undeniable, so powerful, that it would turn ridicule into silence in an instant. The officer's sneer grew bolder as he stepped closer, voice rising just enough for the waiting travelers to hear. He questioned the man's credentials, insinuating that someone of his appearance could never be in a position of authority. Passengers around them shifted uncomfortably, some exchanging glances that betrayed a mix of shock and disbelief. The air thickened with tension. A moment that should have been routine had transformed into a public spectacle of bias and humiliation. Every instinct screamed for the man to react. Yet, he remained composed, knowing that losing control could give the officer the satisfaction he craved. He felt a familiar surge of frustration, the kind that builds when intelligence, experience, and hard-earned authority are dismissed without cause. He thought of the countless hours of study, simulator practice, and real-world flight, time that had led him here. Every certificate, every logged flight hour, every early morning spent perfecting landings, all of it counted for nothing in the officer's eyes, judged solely by skin color. As the officer continued, his mocking grew more aggressive, fueled by an audience that had unconsciously become part of the power dynamic. Whispered judgments spread through the crowd. Some murmured disbelief. Others tried to rationalize the officer's behavior. But the man's silent dignity became a focal point. He was calm, poised, and unshakable, yet the injustice of the situation pressed down like a storm cloud. The tension escalated further when the officer demanded identification, clearly expecting hesitation or confusion. The man reached slowly into his jacket, fingers brushing the edge of a wallet that contained the key to ending this confrontation. Passengers leaned forward, captivated, sensing that something monumental was about to unfold. The officer, confident in his own perceived authority, did not anticipate the revelation to come. In a single motion, the man produced his pilot ID. The moment the officer saw it, his confidence faltered, replaced by shock and disbelief. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the weight of the truth sank in. The person he had tried to belittle and intimidate was the pilot of the very aircraft waiting just beyond the gate. The dynamics shifted instantly. The mocking tone dissolved into awkward silence. Passengers, once silent observers, now watched as the officer's bravado crumbled. His assumptions, built on prejudice and ignorance, had been shattered in an instant. The man's calm, composed presence contrasted sharply with the officer's embarrassed retreat. The rising tension that had gripped the terminal evaporated, leaving behind stunned awareness and a new energy, one of justice, subtle yet undeniable, and a lesson silently communicated to everyone who had witnessed the ordeal. The man did not gloat or speak. He simply stood, calm and dignified, as the truth hung in the air. In this unspoken moment, he reclaimed authority not through aggression, but through the undeniable power of truth, and earned respect. The airport, once a stage for humiliation, had become a space where quiet triumph spoke louder than words. The officer froze, his swagger evaporating under the weight of undeniable truth. The pilot's ID gleamed in the harsh fluorescent lights, a silent emblem of authority, expertise, and years of hard-won achievement. The terminal seemed to hold its breath as passengers processed the reversal of power. What moments ago had been humiliation was now a scene of stunned recognition. Time slowed. The officer's eyes darted, searching for an escape from the mounting embarrassment. He had believed he controlled the situation, that his authority and prejudice were absolute, but the pilot's composed stare dismantled that illusion in an instant. Every whispered judgment, every mocking smirk was now reflected back at him, amplified by the gravity of his mistake. Around them, people shifted, some nodding in quiet approval, others in disbelief that such blatant bias could exist and then be so publicly undone. The tension reached its peak when the officer attempted to regain control, stammering, trying to salvage authority that had vanished the moment he realized who stood before him. But the pilot's presence was unwavering. Calm, collected, and resolute, he exuded a quiet power that needed no words, no raised voice. The terminal became a courtroom of social conscience. The audience, silent witnesses, the officer, exposed. And the pilot, the embodiment of dignity and triumph over prejudice. Passengers' eyes followed the pilot as he moved with unshakable precision toward the gate. Every step resonated with the weight of experience and self-respect. The officer, defeated and red-faced, slowly stepped aside, powerless to reverse the truth that had rendered his arrogance meaningless. For a fleeting, electric moment, the airport terminal transformed. What had begun as an act of mockery evolved into a vivid lesson about the consequences of prejudice, the resilience of those who face it, and the silent authority earned through skill, patience, and dignity. The pilot's victory was not loud or vengeful. It was the quiet, undeniable assertion of reality over ignorance, of achievement over assumption, and of respect over bias. The crowd, though unspoken, collectively recognized the power shift. Witnessing injustice confronted so flawlessly created a ripple of awareness that would linger far longer than the officer's humiliation. In this climax, the pilot had not just defended himself, he had made an unforgettable statement about dignity, perseverance, and the power of truth. The pilot's calm stride carried him past the stunned officer and toward the aircraft, each step a quiet testament to years of dedication, resilience, and unshakable self-respect. Around him, the terminal buzz slowly resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. What had begun as a moment of humiliation had transformed into a demonstration of undeniable truth and the quiet power of earned authority. Passengers lingered, some whispering to one another, reflecting on the confrontation they had just witnessed. The scene was a stark reminder of how easily prejudice can distort perception and how courage and dignity can correct it. The officer, once brimming with confidence, now slinked away, his arrogance replaced by the weight of public exposure. His assumptions had been shattered, not by confrontation, but by evidence and the unwavering composure of the person he had sought to belittle. For the pilot, this encounter was not about revenge. It was a reminder that integrity, competence, and calm perseverance can triumph over prejudice. The incident reinforced the truth that real authority does not come from uniform, title, or loud words. It comes from mastery, confidence, and the quiet assertion of one's rightful place. As the passengers boarded, there was a subtle sense of reflection in the air. Some silently acknowledged the injustice, others carried a renewed awareness that assumptions based on appearance can never withstand the weight of experience and expertise. The pilot took his seat in the cockpit, preparing for takeoff, but the impact of the moment lingered far beyond the aircraft doors. This encounter raised questions that extended beyond the airport. How often do we let bias cloud our judgment? How many times have assumptions silenced truth or diminished achievement? And most importantly, what would happen if, in every moment of prejudice, those who are underestimated held steadfast to their dignity and let reality speak for itself? In the end, the pilot's victory was not just his own. It was a statement to everyone who witnessed it, that resilience, expertise, and unwavering self-respect can overcome even the most blatant injustice. It was a reminder that while prejudice may be loud, truth is indomitable, and dignity, when maintained, always prevails.